Hi, welcome to Ammosmith.com. Today we're going to talk a little bit about priming, and we covered a lot of this before, but what I want to do is go into the more specifics of primer pocket and primer pocket depth. First, let's go ahead and talk about the depth of the primer pockets. Now, a small rifle, small pistol, and large pistol have the same depth, and that goes from 0.118 to 0.112 inches deep for the primer pocket. The only one that's different is the large rifle primer pockets, which go from 0.128 to 0.132 inches in depth. Now, when you're getting new brass, or if you're uniforming your brass, what you want to do is make sure that your primer pockets are to those specifications. And there's a couple ways of doing this. One is to get a primer pocket uniforming tool. This one's made by Possum, and it has a large cutter and a small cutter. They're both adjustable, so it's good to have a pair of calipers around in order to calibrate it to the brass that you're cutting. Now, the way I measure it is with a set of calipers like this, and I use the base of the caliper in order to get the depth. Let me show you how that's done. On large rifle brass, what you want to do is measure from the flat part of the head into the pocket itself right here. And what we do is we take our micrometer and use this portion of the tool. Extend it out as far as you need to. Place this portion inside the primer pocket itself, and then run the tool down on top of it. Once you've done this, you may have to do it 1 or 2 times, depending, but you should get a reading like this. 0.132. This is actually 0.133, and that's because these cases have been used quite a bit. But what you want to make sure of is that when you seat your primer, it doesn't extend out beyond what the head of the case is. This will cause head spacing problems, it will cause ignition problems, and in a semi-automatic rifle like an AR-15, M1 Garand, or anything with a floating firing pin, it can cause a slam fire. When you seat your primers, you have to make sure that each one is seated properly. It has to be completely flat and square inside the primer pocket in order for it to get the best ignition. One way to check is take your finger and run it on the back of the primer. If it feels like it's raised a little bit, either your primer pockets aren't deep enough or you didn't seat the primer deep enough during the seating operation. If you feel the primer and if you feel a slight indentation, that's exactly where you need it to be. Sometimes, especially with new brass, it's very difficult to seat the primers, and it can go unnoticed. There are several ways to detect this. One is by feel, and another one is to put it on a hard flat surface and to test it that way. The best way to do it, this piece here is flat and it's hard. You can also use an old CD or CD case, a flat mirror, is to take the case and put it on that surface and give it a push. If it comes to upright immediately and doesn't wobble around, you know it's seated to the proper dimensions. If you take it and it wobbles around like that guy does, it needs to be seated in a little bit deeper. At times, if you're seating a primer and using a hand tool like the Lee or the RCBS or any of the other hand tools offered out there, it may not give you enough mechanical advantage to seat the primer deep enough in, say, a new unprimed case or in a military case that has a crimped primer pocket. In such cases, many times you'll get a case that will wobble like this. If your case wobbles like this, you know your primer is not seated right. This can put undue stress on the primer, cause ignition problems, and more importantly, it can be a safety issue in semi-automatic rifles. It will also cause accuracy problems downrange. All the presses made today, whether it's a C-style press, an O-style press, all have the means of priming off that press. If you have new unprimed brass, I recommend that you use your press, maybe a little bit slower, but you'll get a good positive seat on your primer. If you already have your cases and your primers are sitting the way they should be, and you're just starting out, a lot of times getting the tools can be expensive. And a lot of times when people are getting into reloading is because they want to be able to get ammunition a lot more affordably. Now there's tools out there that will clean your primer pockets. Lee sells one with their kit. RCBS sells one that has a little metal brush. But if you don't have either one of those, a quick and easy way of cleaning your primer pockets is a flat tip screwdriver. I'm going to clean all three of these cases with each. I'm going to show you the difference. The Lee is really straightforward. Go into your primer pocket, and it gets it decently clean. The brush from RCBS does the exact same thing, but a little more effectively. You get your primer pockets clean. And the flat tip screwdriver. It will clean your primer pockets just as good as any of the over-the-counter tools you can buy from any reloading company. Just make sure that the flat tip screwdriver fits into the primer pocket itself and does not jam up against the walls of the primer pocket itself. That can change the dimensions of your primer pocket and cause primer seating issues.